Hello and welcome to CAP number 5, the alphabetic principle. In this CAP, we will review some key terms and concepts that are foundational to understanding the alphabetic principle. We will identify two big ideas about the alphabetic principle that you need to know. We will define the alphabetic principle, and then we'll show you how the alphabetic principle connects to what you already know about phonological awareness and early oral language development to what you will learn later on about phonics instruction. Before we dive into new information, let's review some essential background knowledge from previous CAPs and class sessions. Phonological awareness is the name for a broad set of skills that includes the ability to identify and manipulate many different units of oral language. Those units are words, syllables, onsets and rhymes, and phonemes. A syllable is a unit of spoken language that always has at least one vowel and may or may not contain consonants. Onset is the sound that comes before the first vowel in a word. In the word bat, the b sound is the onset. Rhyme is the first vowel sound in a word, plus whatever comes after it. In the word bat, the at sound is the rhyme. Phonemes are the smallest unit of speech sounds. And finally, phonemic awareness is the specific skill that involves the ability to pick out and manipulate individual phonemes in words. Now that we've reviewed the relevant background knowledge, now let's identify the big ideas for this CAP on the alphabetic principle. First, the alphabetic principle is the bridge between early phonological awareness and learning to read. And second, it's essential that children get a good grasp on the alphabetic principle so that the explicit phonics instruction that they'll receive later on will be beneficial to helping them learn to read. In other words, if there's a gap here, phonics instruction isn't likely to be very effective. Now we'll present the new key terms for this CAP. The terms we'll define are alphabetic principle, graphemes, and phonics. First up is the definition for the alphabetic principle. The alphabetic principle is knowing that speech sounds and letters link to one another. Imagine asking a young child this question. If the child can correctly make the R sound when asked what sound the letter R makes, then he or she has probably grasped the alphabetic principle. But the alphabetic principle has to be understood in both directions, not just letters to sounds, but also sounds to letters. So if you also ask the child, which letter sounds like G as in girl, he or she should be able to name or point to the letter G if they have an understanding of the alphabetic principle. Next, graphemes. You may recall this term from an earlier CAP. Graphemes are printed or visual symbols that represent phonemes. Letters are graphemes. The reason that graphemes are important in the alphabetic principle is the concept of mapping. The 44 phonemes, or sounds in English, map onto the 26 graphemes, or letters, of the English alphabet. Understanding that phonemes map onto graphemes is part of understanding the alphabetic principle. The last term that we'll define in this CAP is phonics. The term phonics refers to a teaching method that helps students relate spoken sounds to written symbols. In other words, teaching phonics means teaching letter-sound relationships. This graphic should help you organize your previous and new knowledge about phonological awareness and the alphabetic principle. It shows the progression of phonological awareness skills from the simplest and earliest at the bottom of the pyramid to the most complex and later skills at the top of the pyramid. Remember that although this sequence occurs in most children, the time that a child spends in any one skill area before progressing to the next will vary greatly from child to child. The earliest and simplest skill in phonological awareness is hearing oral rhymes and alliteration. This occurs early on in the child's language acquisition and development. As the child's oral language develops and his or her phonological awareness expands, the skills he or she acquires become more complex. When the child can identify phonemes and match them to letters, aka the alphabetic principle, then he or she is likely ready for phonics instruction. Now let's review what we've covered in this video. In this CAP, we provided definitions and examples for these three terms: alphabetic principle, graphemes, and phonics. We explored two big ideas about the alphabetic principle and its key role in the development of phonological awareness. We demonstrated the alphabetic principle by looking at how phonemes map on to graphemes. And last, we saw how the progression of phonological awareness skills culminates in grasping the alphabetic principle and prepares children for explicit phonics instruction. That's all for this topic. Thanks for watching.